significant and how important this little information right here can be. Anyone who gets on the computer nowadays and gets onto any web browser, and you start looking at websites, we know that you have to have some kind of antivirus on our computer. That's good common sense. It needs to be done. What I didn't realize is that when you are on a web browser, every keystroke that you make makes you traceable. That people can tell what websites you've been on, what your shopping habits might happen to be. It means that your passwords may be at risk, and there's only one way to prevent it, and it's called encryption, and that's what this is. Our computer expert, Brett Hamilton, is with us.
Hey there.
Welcome back.
Morning, everybody. Happy New Year.
10,000 people have already taken the time to invest in this. Brett and I were on the air yesterday. I asked Brett, he's headed to Las Vegas for the big electronics show coming up.
Tomorrow, yep.
I had asked him to come in today and to show this to us once again. This was military technology 10 years ago. This is a way that you can now be completely invisible when you're on the internet. And there was nothing available in the general public like this at anywhere near the price.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is not antivirus. This is another layer of protection. And what people don't realize is, as Dan just said, every time you go on your computer, all that information is out there. It's all accessible and people can see it. It's every keystroke. It's every time you click onto the mouse. It's everywhere you go. We'll take a peek at this right here, and you look at this animation. It gives you a really good feel for all the threats that are out there. So you're looking at pictures, or you're sending an email, or you're typing a password, or you're attaching something. You're balancing your checkbook. You're looking at your credit card account. Somebody else is looking as well. Bad guys can see your life, your online life, your browsing habits, your passwords that are in there, the personal and financial information, basically all of your online behavior, unless it's got some sort of secure web browser. And for those of you that don't know what a web browser is, it's where you go to type www. wherever you're going, .com or .org or whatever. It's Internet Explorer, it's Firefox, it's Safari. Those web browsers, for the most part, are not secure, so a hacker could see it.
There was a big story not long ago where one of the big ones was hacked.
Well, Sony.
Sony.
Yeah, Sony got hacked, and they're still adding up all the damage from that. That's a big, big company, and if the bad guys can get to them, imagine what they can do to your personal computer. So now you can plug this into your computer, this little tiny thumb drive, and essentially be anonymous. And not only be anonymous while you're online, nobody can see you while you're online, but when you disconnect it, you unplug this web browser, you were never there. So stop and think about that for a second. If you wanted to check your medical records, if you wanted to balance a checkbook or look at credit cards while you're at work, there's no way you would ever go on a public computer and do any of that information, because the next person that walks up to the computer can simply hit back or look into the history
and track you
and see all the information and know where you were. Now, when you unplug this and walk away, it's as if you were never on the computer. And then that goes for anything. No matter what you do online with your online life, nobody can ever see it, nobody can ever track it, and nobody ever knows you were there when you're done.
Let me tell this story. Again, this becomes your private browser. During the holiday season, I was looking for a particular gift for my wife. Cowboy boots. She wanted cowboy boots. So I started doing internet searches.
Yeah, you go to Google, right? And just type cowboy
from
boots.
my home, and started looking it up. And it was the strangest thing. The next day when I was on social media and happened to be on a regular Facebook page, the little ads that pop up on the side, they kept coming up saying, hey, I hear you're interested in cowboy boots.
Yeah.
And they never worded it that way. It was just all of a sudden ads for cowboy boots.
You might like, or maybe you want to go to. Or
and I was thinking,
how did they know that?
How did they know that I was looking for cowboy boots?
Yep.
Because there are companies that track everything you do.
And they pay for that information.
So here's how this works. It looks like a credit card. It is a micro, itty-bitty, tiny USB.
Yeah, and by the way, this plugs in. A lot of people ask me this. Where does it go? How do you use this? You plug it in the same place you plug in a mouse. That you'd plug in a printer, an external driver, something like that.
So instead of using your usual web browser, whatever it be, Firefox, this,
Internet Explorer,
AOL, Internet Explorer, now you have this. And it means that you cannot be tracked. Every computer has its own address, and people don't realize that. They're referred to as an IP address. So, right now, my computer is on the internet, and it is telling someone who wants to track me that we are at this number, and it's Westchester, Pennsylvania. Even comes down to the point where it tells you Studio Park.
Well, it would give your physical address, and for those of you wondering, can mine be tracked? Go into Google and just type in, what is my IP address? There's plenty of websites that will show it to you. They'll show you your unique number. They'll show you what town you're in, and they'll probably give you a pinpoint and pretty darn close, if not exactly, where you are. So think about that for a second when you're talking about social media.
Which, by the way, can tell a crook when you're at home and when you're not at home.
But if your kids are in chat rooms and stuff like that, and they're talking to people across the country,
they can find you.
And somebody else can pop in there. Now take a peek at this computer because it's protected with SurfEasy.
We're actually
in the same exact location.
Exact same location. It's kind of like the spy movies.
We're scrambling it.
Yeah, that's
right?
exactly what they're doing.
We can't track them.
They're encrypting it. They're telling, and we're still here in Westchester, Pennsylvania, it's telling that the IP address, in this case, is now fraudulent, coming out of Phoenix, Arizona, or maybe London, or it could be somewhere else. You cannot be tracked now.
Yeah, and you have the ability, as Dan just mentioned, you can see right here with this little icon, whoops, that you can go in there and actually put yourself,
hit the wrong button, buddy.
The magic of touchscreen. You can put yourself pretty much anywhere in the world. So you could be in the UK, you could be in London, you could be wherever you want to be. Once you're there, you're not there.
Right.
Stop and think about that for a second. Even though the computer says you are, you're someplace else.
And the average individual, even when they sit down for a 30-minute web browsing session, I have the attention span of a flea. And I will have something on the internet where, again, I was looking for cowboy boots for my wife.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I saw something that popped up with YouTube that was funny. And I went, oh, I got a couple seconds. I'll look at that. And then I went to something else. And on average, you can be on 400 websites in a 30-minute site.
And Dan, by the way, that's not even 400 websites. To be clear about that clip of video right there, so 400 different individual unique fingerprints left behind.
Okay.
So in 30 minutes, I go here, and then I click back there. I do this, and I click back there. And then I save this, and I put that password in.
Okay.
Every single one of those clicks, and if you stop and think about that for a second, each time you type in a password, it's kind of leaving that information inside the computer. Okay. So somebody else walks up to the computer where you're thinking, well, this is my personal computer. Nobody's going to see that at home. Well, maybe nobody in your family, but what about somebody outside your home or your building or wherever it is that can peek and go, I see those characters. Those characters supposedly are encrypted. But somebody that knows what they're doing can go backwards and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 was his password. Now I've got the password. I look at the history. I see what website he was on, and now I can go in there and I can use your account to be someplace else.
There's nothing else that I am aware of that will give you this type of independence, this type of security and freedom. It's priced at $70, and it's not a one-year subscription. You
For
have
life.
it.
Yeah.
So it becomes your own private web browser. Now, I will say, it is a little bit slower than some of the other ones out there, but I don't use it every day. I use it when I'm doing something secure. Here's a good example. If you're at work and want to check your Facebook page, this allows you to get on, and nobody knows that you're doing that on your lunch break or your lunch hour.
And it'll let you get past places that normally at work you couldn't go to. They're called firewalls. Your company puts that there so that you're not on Facebook. Well, during your lunch hour, if you want to go and look at your Facebook page or check your private email or balance your checkbook or look at medical records or wherever it is, not only can you do that, but the most important part about this, and I stress this all the time, is that this essentially turns any computer into your personal computer. And by personal, I mean yours, but also so that it's private. Yeah, allowing you to surf anonymously and allowing you to not leave anything behind. Again, I can't stress it enough. Go to anybody's computer. Go to your computer. Go up inside to the history, and you'll be amazed with all the information that's left behind, even though you think you're clearing that stuff out by restarting your computer or by rebooting your computer or by unplugging your computer. That stuff lives inside the computer forever. If you use this, when you unplug it, it's as if you were never on the computer. So I could go to your house, I could go to a public library, I could go to an airport, a hotel, do whatever I want online, pop it out, and I was never there.
It is exceptional. Over 2,000 have been ordered this morning, or this weekend, 1,000 this morning. For somebody who's just tuning in, Brett, let's go back over it again. You know you need antivirus.
Right. When this is not antivirus. This is the next layer, right?
This is a whole level of further protection for you when you're on the internet. And there are threats that are out there. There are ways that people can track you.
Yeah, and unfortunately, every time you hit the keyboard, every time you click the mouse, all of that stuff is trackable, it's traceable. Sony found out the hard way. One of the main web browsers we just mentioned earlier was hacked last year. A lot of these retail locations, these are major corporations. They're getting all of their information compromised and stolen and then sold off and shared, and people are using that information for bad stuff. So this is kind of, as Dan mentioned earlier, your James Bond way to kind of scramble.
You're invisible.
To remain invisible, to remain anonymous. And if you've seen in the movies before, hey, we can't track him, he keeps moving from location to location. That's what this does. It bounces your information to so many different places. And by the way, people are asking this as well. Can the SurfEasy people see the information? No. It leaves the computer encrypted. It goes to wherever it's supposed to go. It's then seen, then sent back, so to speak, so that it's scrambled midair. And then all of that information disappears. As soon as you unplug the web browser, it's gone.
This was military technology a decade ago. It didn't exist in our world, but the threats that we have to deal with every day with the computer, a lot of those didn't exist 10 years ago either. So again, it looks like a little credit card. You just slide it out. It's a tiny little USB drive. It goes into the same port that you would plug a mouse into, or a
keyboard,
USB,
or a
anything.
printer, or something like that.
And then you will have your own www address.
Yeah, and for those of you wondering what a web browser is, Internet Explorer is an example of a web browser. Firefox, Safari, all those different
AOL.
places where you search online. Yeah, all those places where you type in where it is that you want to go. This is going to replace it. It does something really cool. The first time you use it, if you've got a bunch of stuff bookmarked on your old browser, it will let you bring all that over. Then it will also, if you choose, let you save the passwords for all the individual websites that you go to. In here, you have one password you create for this, which means if you lose it, nobody can get to it. But also, then you don't have to remember the passwords to the 15 other places you go every day.
Yeah. Again, you may not use it every day, but you will use it. And it is the next generation of protection. We're going to go off, say hello to Florence.
Okay.
Florence says she's from Arizona.
She's really in Brazil.
She's really in Brazil. Florence, good morning. How are you?
I am fine, thank you.
Florence, do you...
I have had that same experience that you've been talking about.
Okay.
Going on the internet, doing a search, and then either I get emails about the item I had been researching, or I get